Okay, it gives me great pleasure to introduce these two people. They lent their name to the tournament back in 1970-71, Mr. and Mrs. Donald Munn. Donald, what's it like to be back in Thompson here 25 years later?
I can't imagine it could have ever been like this. Absolutely fantastic.
And we have Brian McCusker here as well. Brian, you got some questions to ask Mr. and Mrs. Munn?
Well, yeah, Don, I've been involved with minor hockey for about 14 years now, and I always heard the legacy of Don Munn. Didn't know who in the hell he was, didn't know where he came from, didn't know anything about him, and I guess over the years, even being on Minor Hockey Executive, I've always asked, you know, who is he? Why don't we know a lot about him? You know, and here's an opportunity for you to perhaps shed some light on, you know, some of the early parts of the Munn Cup, about thumb hockey, and maybe some names that you can recall from way back when.
Well, see, the reason you haven't met us is because in 1974 we left Thompson, which was a great place to live in 1974, but we got transferred to Winnipeg. Therefore, the 4 years that we were involved in the Munn Cup were fine. And I went out and dropped pucks like we did this morning. But then after 4 of them, we weren't here. And as I mentioned this morning, we did come back for 1 and did that, but that was all up until now. So in terms of how it got started, Thompson was a going concern back in the 60s and 70s, and early in 1970 we got a lot of kids. The schools were expanding like mad, and we had a group of young kids like these who were interested in playing hockey, and there were 3 or 4 of us were sitting around my office one morning talking about hockey, talking about how the kids enjoyed and I think there were a lot of Tom Thumbs in those days, and we should do something for it. So somebody said, well, why don't we have a cup? So we said, gee, that's not a bad idea. So then a lad by the name of Don Hoskins, who was public relations up here then, very going concern.
For Inco?
For Inco. He worked for Inco. And he said, Don, let's call it the Munn Cup. Will you agree? So what could I say? I said, no, I don't. Yeah, no, you know, you shouldn't do that. And so anyway, the 3 or 4 of us that were sitting around here said, sure, we'll get a cup. Hoskins has said, I'll get it made. So, so that's the way the Munn Cup got started.
So was it something, Don, that materialized over a matter of months or weeks, or what was the time frame before the actual ideology came in your office when we actually saw the first one?
I think it took Hoskins something like 4 or 5 weeks to get a cup.
Okay, and how much did the first cup cost? Do you remember the price tag?
No.
You don't remember that?
No.
Okay.
No, couldn't begin to remember that.
Well, let me go to your better half and let me ask her, okay, what she remembers from the very beginning.
Well, of course, we go back to 1960 in Thompson. And so I taught school, I taught Sunday school, I helped with the library, and I even, you know, did some work at home in between.
Did you spend a few days in the C.A. Nesbitt Arena with long underwear on?
I did, believe me, I did. And curling, if at 55 inside, it was 55 outside, and it was cold. But it was a very happy experience, and I wouldn't have missed it.
Excuse me, Greta, I think you should mention the curling. It was not this sophisticated curling rink over here.
No, the curling rink had natural ice. It was a Butler building with, you know, one of those rounded roofs, and when you went in, it was really cold, but we had fun anyway, and we curled in the afternoons, and there was a business group that curled at night, and, you know, it didn't matter how cold it was, we still did our 10 ends on the curling rink. Now, the other thing I think perhaps I'd like to mention is the library, and it was established as the Thompson Centennial Project in Manitoba, And a group of ladies started the library, and we had to work very hard. We got sent to Winnipeg for books that were free at the Children's Hospital Book Market, and we went from there until now. It's one of the best libraries in the vicinity, and that's how people worked hard to get the things. And today is the climax of all my hard work, if you want to call it that, in Thompson, because this has just been wonderful. Never have I seen anybody in the rink stand up for us, and it was a thrill, absolutely. And here I want to show the people this souvenir. Two souvenirs. We had one, and now we have two, so we'll keep them forever and a day.
I noticed in that opening ceremonies when Donald was addressing the crowd, I noticed that you got a little broken up there. I imagine it's pretty touching to come back after 25 years. Your name was lent to this that long ago, and come back now. It's got to really.
Well, I think the reason for it was that these people stood up, and it was such an enthusiastic, spontaneous sort of a thing. And look, there were hundreds and hundreds of people here worked their butts off for this. And I come up, actually I did very little. In terms of physical work, devoting time and stuff, minimal. It's all of these people who stood around this rink this morning who made this thing work, not me. So I really wanted them to understand that we appreciate very much what they have done, and there are four other cups now, other than the Munn Cup, and these are all people who have contributed so much to it. So they claim a lot of the bouquets should go to them too.
What about some names? We look here and we see the C.A. Nesbitt Arena. What are your recollections of this arena coming here, or the very beginnings when you were here?
The recognition of this arena coming here, there was a radar station on the Pine Tree Line in northern Manitoba to guard against the Russians coming into Canada. That radar station was disbanded and was torn down. And Carl Nesbitt was the local government district administrator here at that time, and he sent a crew of 3 or 4 people whose names I've forgotten up from here, and the hangar up there they tore down piece by piece, numbered every piece that came out of that building, because apparently there were no drawings.
Right.
They all came down on the railroad cars. And the C.A. Nesbitt Arena was a pile of steel beams with numbers on. And that's the way the C.A. Nesbitt Arena was built.
So what role did Inco play in trying to bring that building here and put it together?
Oh, we put a few dollars into it.
Are you being humble?
Well, see, this was, I guess, not a bit difficult to explain. I have to talk about Inco. I worked for him for a long time. But see, when Thompson first started, Inco built all of the schools. They put in the roads, the infrastructure, the water. Inco really paid for everything because the local government district did not have any money. Some of this was by negotiation with the government, and some of it was just a straight gesture on the part of Inco. Inco realized this had to be here. We had to have recreational facilities, so that's the way it grew. But I may get shot down in flames, but going way
probably wouldn't be the first time.
Going way back, the money that came to build Thompson was Inco money. Now look, let's not be too sad about it. It's been a wonderful development, and certainly International Nickel has made some money out of Thompson. That's why we were here.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I have a question now. Back then, now, have you got any kids that played any Munn Cup, or have you any kids?
Well, we have two girls, and when we moved to Thompson, they were 10 and 7, and one is now living in Sudbury, and the other is now living in Calgary. But they went they went through elementary school and part of high school in Sudbury, and they remember a lot of people and a lot of things about it. But we didn't have any boys to get involved.
We never did, eh?
And
No.
this morning we saw girls
We saw
Definitely lots of girls.
in the teams, which is great.
I was telling Bruce the other night, I went through all the pictures. I don't know if you got a chance to walk up the very first team from 71 all the way up to this current team that I coach. Their pictures are up there. And there are 4 girls that play for the Thompson teams. And the first girl that played was Kim Drapak. She played, I saw her picture up there. And another one was Corey Sawerski and Pam Schwader. And
Corey Swirsky was the only female to win an MVP in the
she won the Most Valuable Player trophy when she was a 10-year-old. Who are some other names, Don, that were involved with minor hockey when you were back here?
Lauren Lamontagne.
Lauren has been fantastic. As everybody knows, Lauren has a cup. Lauren came here in the very early days, worked in the maintenance department, was always enthusiastic about developing things in Thompson, everything. And Lauren, he was certainly very instrumental in the formation of hockey leagues up here.
Okay. And what about, there's a trophy that we have in there, I think his name is McDermott. I don't know if you recall that name at all, either of you. There's a plaque, McDermott.
There was a plaque, Mr. McDermott. I don't think I don't think you'd be familiar with it. He was I believe a ref and maybe a coach then. He worked for Inco for many years, and he's been involved in minor hockey for a number of years. And he died at Inco, working for Inco, and they named a plaque after him. But that's the story behind it.
Sorry, I did not know him.
In the Munn Cup. Now the trophies now are the Lauren Lamontagne Cup, the Munn Cup obviously, the Mintinko Cup. They've got the Crockett Cup, and also 2 more that's been added over the last 2 years, I believe. The Timmins Cup, you're probably familiar with him, and he's retired too, and the HD Cup, which is part of that as well. I think you wanted to elaborate on something.
Well, I would like to speak about one woman who was very active in this when it first started, and that was Bernice Cook. Her husband worked for Inco, and Bernice had 3 boys, and she worked very hard. She was a timekeeper. She was everything in lacrosse and in hockey. She lives in Winnipeg, not too far from us now, and she drove us to the airport at Thursday afternoon, and she would have loved to be on that airplane to come down to this tournament again. And when we told her there was an alumni game, she was just, so excited. She said, I would have been there if I'd known that. Her son, David, and 2 sons, David and Gary, played in this Munn Cup when it first started. But she was a very willing, enthusiastic worker.
And it was Irene Mintenko and Bernice were always very good friends, and she was talking about Bernice this morning and having visited Bernice the last time she was down. The Al Timmins, I was looking forward to seeing Al again, but to my knowledge, he hasn't been here this morning.
No, Al and his wife Alice, they were neighbors of ours on Silver, and he retired a few years ago.
Yes,
and they moved out to the East Coast. And I gather from someone on the Munn Cup committee that he was approached to come up, and he had other commitments and just couldn't come up.
Yeah. No, because I had lost track of Al, and I knew him very well back in his Inco days.
Sure. One of the cups are named after Al and his son, who used to have the skate sharpener here, the ET blades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still active today, by the way. Earl is still active today, and so the legacy lives on here as the Timmins Cup will go. Yeah. Another thing, maybe we've never had the best teams here, but we always ran the best tournaments. I found over the number of years that I've been watching Munn Cup. It's always been top notch. There was tournaments that come and go, but when you say the Munn Cup, everybody gets involved. You wouldn't believe the work that goes in behind it that nobody sees. The committees that hours and hours. These things, what Brian, get started probably in about November, do they not? You know, soon as it started, the committees get going, and it's a heck of a lot of work. And like I said, it's the best run tournament I think you'll find anywhere, really.
Yeah, the Munn Cup, it's got so big that they actually have within the infrastructure of minor hockey, they have a person responsible, and this year it's Rick Horton, and he's done an unbelievable job. And you see some of the residual effects, you know, outside of the arena, but they put in a plethora of hours. They just put in so much time into doing it.
Yes.
And as Mr. Alick said today, I mean, Inco has always been a strong supporter.
Yeah.
I know that there are times when I'm sure that they are, you know, they feel like they're, you know, been sucked dry from everyone who wants money, but they've always been extremely supportive, you know, and always, you know, encouraging us and to carry on, you know, the legacy that you know, that we talked about. But there are some, you know, there are some criticisms, okay, about the Munn Cup, and one that you always hear is we always have to give up our Easter weekend. I talked to one father. This is his 7th year that he spent Easter in Thompson, and he said, "Why don't you change the weekend?" But the city has been very supportive as well, providing us with staff and not closing the facility because it's the only facility that's open.
Well, and look, it's a long weekend that makes it possible. I know it's a bind to do it several years in a row to bring kids in, but that's part of raising children, isn't it? Just to go back 1 second to something you said, Rick Horton, of course, was a little bitsy boy like this in Thompson here. We knew him. Mm-hmm. We knew his mother and his brother. So he goes way back in his activities here too.
It was kind of fitting that you would have him chairperson this event, and you knew him when he was just a young tyke. Yeah. So it's kind of nice, eh?
So, any other people, Don, that you're looking forward to seeing that you heard that's still in town, or people that you've seen already?
Well, we've seen quite a few people. Last night we were invited to go up to the museum, and by Gary Garvey. Right. And said that the United Church was putting on a play. The rehearsal was last night in the museum. Would we like to go up? So we went up and we spent about an hour and a half, and that was the first time we had seen the museum, and we also watched them practicing for this play they're going to present. And there were, 15 or 18 of them there, and that was a great time last night. So everything we turned around, every time we turn around here, there's something exciting.
Oh, good.
Well, another person whom we'd like to see is Davy Crockett, because he was involved in this the very first year. And when we left, for 4 or 5 years, he phoned every the Sunday of the Grey Cup weekend to tell us the Munn Cup, to tell us who the winner was. And a couple of times when he couldn't come, his son, who lives in Winnipeg now, he phoned to tell us. So we'd like to get in touch with David Crockett if we can.
Sure. Okay, Bruce. Is there anything else that you would like to, to address with the folks?
No, I think that'll just about wrap it up here. We've gone on pretty extensively. I want to thank Brian McCusker, and Brian has something to say?
I guess in terms of the longevity, okay, I think that we're committed, to the weekend. We're committed to the Munn Cup. People who are going to look at this, when you sat around that day and you thought about it, obviously you didn't think of the magnitude and the literally thousands of kids that it has impacted. It's something that's really well known in northern Manitoba. You look sometimes, and I'm not sure if you know how many people have gone on to the NHL who played here, but what does that do for you personally as you're in retirement now, away from Thompson? What impact does it have on you?
Well, I guess the impact, and I'm sure we both agree, that the years we spent in Thompson were absolutely magnificent years. And it was a great place to be, and I think that the people who are here now also appreciate that. It's been a remarkable experience. From Muskeg to a thriving metropolis, it's out of this world.
And the thing is, I'd like to emphasize again that we appreciate the people who do all this work. And the number of times we'll be talking to somebody in Winnipeg. We were buying something in Eaton's not too long ago, and we were talking to the salesman, and you know, when he said where were something about Thompson, and he said, "Oh, I know Thompson." He said, "My son played in the Munn Cup," and all along the line, there have been people. Dr. and Standing, they had two boys who play, and they're in Winnipeg now, and they had two boys that years ago that played in the Munn Cup. So it goes on, and I think it'll continue for a long time, and a bit of a legacy for those of us and you who have carried on for a long time.
One other thing, I guess I would like to say, we've been talking about names, and I've been racking my brains. One family in Thompson who contributed so much to the hockey, to this arena, were the Sangsters. And we haven't heard of them this morning.
No, Mary Sangster and Red Sangster.
Red and Mary.
If you just look over your right-hand shoulder, they named a ball diamond after. It's called the Red Sangster Ball Diamond.
Oh.
You can see the the signage up on the fence.
Well, they're still active here.
Yes, they moved out to Paint Lake and they're retired out there.
That's where they are.
Yeah.
But Brenda is still here and still working for Inco.
Yeah, and she married to Keith Redmond.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, I guess that I mentioned to you when I met you this morning that it was very significant for a lot of us to have the opportunity to have you come here. It certainly impacts the community to know that it's important enough for you to come back and make the sacrifices in your lives to come up here this weekend. I guess that on a personal note, I appreciate your humility. I appreciate the opportunity that you've taken to mention other names and not to take all the glory. And I know that obviously we've missed people and that's inevitable. Yeah. That's a fact of life, that when we try to go back and look at people who contributed and hopefully that no one is offended by.
I trust they aren't. I trust they aren't.
Because I think that they get a genuine feeling that you certainly committed to to the development of hockey and young people, and we just have to read the papers on what's happening with our kids today, and certainly your legacy here with the Munn Cup is making a difference for a lot of kids, and I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you enjoy the weekend and your time up here and taking a walk down memorabilia lane, and something that you walk away with another special aspect of your life in Thompson. So I certainly appreciate it, and Bruce, you can wrap up.
Okay. Well, I just want to say I want to thank Greta. I want to thank you and Donald for being our guest, and Brian for pumping a few questions there. I hope everything this weekend goes as planned, and you plan on staying the rest of the weekend, I understand?
Oh, yes.
Yes, certainly. So that's it. I want to thank you people. We're going to carry on with some more Munn Cup, some skills competition coming up in just a few minutes, and also the alumni games.